the Australian government is planning to introduce a ban on under-16s using social media. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese claims it's causing harm to young people's mental health, and he's announced plans to trial the use of age verification technology to stop under-16s getting on platforms like Instagram and TikTok. So should the UK follow suit? And if so, is this the age bracket that we should be aiming for? Well, Jake, this is a topic very close to my heart. I have become fully convinced that social media, smartphones are one of the primary causes of mental health problems in children and many other serious problems beside. Lots of governments are starting to talk about this, but the Australians are well ahead in their use of legislation. What do you think about this issue? Well,
I think you're right. I mean, I've got 3 young children and I'm really concerned about, I mean, they're too young to be on social media, but I'm really concerned about what lies ahead for them. I'm not sure I support what Australia's doing, not because I don't think it's a good idea to ensure that age verification is right. I'm just not sure that the age 16 is appropriate. But that's progress. If we effectively, as I do, accept the point that we need some sort of control, then we can move to a proper debate about whether that's 16, 14, 13, whatever it may be. And of course, there are age restrictions on things like Facebook. I think from memory it is 13.
Yes, but it's a tick box.
But it's a tick box. So all you can do is you can just knock. If you're 11 years old, you can just predate your date of birth by 2 years, and you can get on. I think what Australia is proposing is interesting because it will stop young people, maybe without their parents' knowledge, short-circuiting the system because they're going to be asking for proper age verification and ID. That's definitely something we should do in the UK because it's enforced in the existing law. Query, is 16 the right age, Miriam?
I completely agree with it. It's something I actually said should have been done before. And I think what is good about it is that for a long time, a lot of governments have been saying that the actual social media companies should take more responsibility, but they're not going to because it hurts their bottom line. The most voracious users are younger users. So they will pledge that, oh, I'll put the tick box in, but the kid is the one who's going to actually tick the box. So doing something like this is saying that, OK, we will put in legislation that damages your bottom line. And I think it will force the hand because they've said it's only 12 months and they will reevaluate it. But I think it will scare the life out of social media companies. So they will really be more hands-on about protecting younger people because I think social media is the underworld for younger people.
Absolutely. And it's not just mental health. I mean, if you look at charts of educational attainment across the world, they start falling from 2010 and then collapse from 2014. I mean, this is affecting everything about our children's lives. But the question is, Jake, how do we do it? Because this has been the conversation for a long time. And especially people on the right have said, we can't invade people's privacy. We can't expect adults to give all their details to tech companies. I think the Australian idea is a bit like, facial recognition when you open your iPhone. Do you think that's appropriate? Do you think that's too invasive?
Well, our children's childhood is being stolen from them by this technology. It didn't really even exist when I was growing up. In fact, it didn't exist. We've got to do something about it. Children, their mental health, their academic attainment is so important to the future of our country. Now, I'm a libertarian. I believe in freedom. I don't think we should be in the business of banning things, but I think some things are so important. And there's all sorts of things we don't allow you to do. You can't smoke at 16. You can't drive a car. You can't drink. Arguably, you could put social media in the same sort of level of harms of some of those concerns we have about young people protecting their health. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm really, really sorry, Miriam, and I know you were a big promoter of it when we were in government, that we didn't make more progress on it.
Indeed, but a Labour MP, Josh McAllister, has actually brought forward a private member's bill to ban mobile phones properly in schools and to do a couple of other things around changing algorithms. So there is some support from this, on the Labour backbenchers at least.
I think this one is one that will reach across the aisle because it affects children and families. And a lot of parents are feeling that we're no longer having the control we have to just protect our children, because I also appreciate there are a lot of famous people who don't let their children have social media. So it is possible to do. But what they find is that when their children go out in the world, there's the pressure from others that, oh, I'm not keeping up with them. That's why I think this blanket ban is such a good thing, because it puts all children on an even playing field.
Yes, absolutely. It's this kind of collective action problem. If you're the only child in the class without a phone, you really are disadvantaged.
And you've seen a bit, there's this thing called the dumb phone movement, isn't there, where you basically get all the parents in a school and say, come on, let's stop our children having this. Well, let's get them a Nokia 3210 or whatever it is, which doesn't have all of these apps on, and all the parents come together and they agree to do it. It works really well till the first parent breaks.
Yeah.
The first day a child
That's why
walks
you've got to
into
make it a law.
with a smartphone, the next week all the kids have got it. And that's why actually this is the right thing to do, because I just think mums and dads and parents and carers, they just need the government on their side with this to help them win the battle with their children.
And I always compare it to things like road regulation. Yes, of course, it's parents' job to teach children to cross the road safely. But if there were no speed limits, if there were no traffic lights, if there were no laws against safety, you couldn't do it.
Yeah,
you need.
But I do agree that dumb phone thing is a great idea, because you do, for instance, like when my parents were abroad and we were in school, you need to be able to call your kid at a point. So they should have a phone. And you're teaching them about technology and interconnectivity, yes. But keep it so rudimentary that it doesn't pose a threat beyond just communication.
I think there's also quite an interesting geopolitical aspect of this that certainly the states have picked up on, which is that TikTok, which is one of the most widely used platforms. I think actually British children are some of the heaviest users of TikTok, is owned or at least probably controlled by the Chinese government. And we're letting an enemy, let's be honest, into our children's bedrooms, into our children's minds. Do you think there are other risks other than just the kind of actual content that's being viewed?
Well, I mean, I think there are. You're letting the Chinese government potentially into every single room of your house with a camera that they can see what you're doing. We can't, as an adult, we can't quantify that risk. I don't think anyone can. We certainly shouldn't expect young people and children to quantify that risk. And let's not forget the amount of child sexual exploitation that takes place on the internet. There's just it should be a national mission and imperative to keep our children safe. This is a very, very small step to doing that. All it's really saying is there's an existing set of rules and we're going to ensure that those are abided with. We are going to enforce those rules. It's a very low bar, and I hope we'll see some movement from the British government on it.
Yep. Why isn't the Labour Party at the top interested in this issue? I remember when Labour were in opposition, they said they weren't interested in banning phones or social media for under 16. Actually, when I asked a question in Prime Minister's Questions last July, the Labour benches laughed at me. Why isn't this an issue yet for Labour?
I think it's a mixture of things. One, it's like I always say, follow the money. Because when you alienate tech companies, you're in big trouble with donors. Two, popularity votes. When you turn under 16s against you, they are the voices of social media. They will turn public sentiment. The rhetoric around the Labour Party will be profoundly negative, and the algorithms will kick in. Yeah. So when you're thinking, if an advisor is going to the leader of the Labour Party, they think, OK, yeah, it's a great idea, but don't do this now. It will destroy us. Yeah.
Now, I should say, of course, that the owners of TikTok absolutely deny Chinese government involvement. This is something that the US is investigating. But, of course, they do deny absolutely that the Chinese do control their app. But we do have a couple of views from you. Problem with limiting social media, says Mark, is that those will be effective. Have parents and guardians that will just create an account on their behalf. That is a problem. That's why we need the right tech in place. So thank you so much for all your views. Time for one more. Grumpy Grandad says, there's no doubt the internet harmed kids, but how do you enforce it? Tick box is useless and kids will get around age verification. Well, I think the Australian government are going to find that out for us. So I'll be very interested to see how they manage to get on. So thank you so much for joining our show. Thanks for getting in touch. That's all from me. Goodbye. See you soon.